Good day, Filter 90211. I'm Tiffany Rothman, and I'm here with my wonderful and amazing co host, Chris Sloan. How are you today, Chris?
Hi, Tiffany. I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm okay. I'm okay. So, you have a good weekend so far?
I have. I have. It feels a little wintry, though, but it's been going well. Had a fire going last night because it got pretty cool over the evening and figured it might be one of the last times to have a fire going before the spring heat and the summer heat come. So it was nice and cozy. How about you?
I didn't get a fire going last night. I was still
No?
warm. Yes, yes. It was a little.
Well, I live in the mountains, so it's a little chilly up here in Santa Clarita.
Oh, yes, yes, I can imagine. Well, anyway, today topic is about the talking cure. Do you know that the term the talking cure was used to describe the magical power of language to relieve mental suffering? The talking cure generally refers to talk therapy, a type of psychotherapy where individuals discuss their thoughts, feeling, and experience with a therapist to address mental health concern. It's a core principle of many therapeutic approach, including psychoanalysis, where open communication is seen as essential for healing.
Well, I always felt it was great to talk things out. I I believe that certain people, based on their personality, have an inert ability to talk when they need to, and other people do the opposite. They keep it in and bottle it in because it's just how they handle things. I've always been a bit of both in my life. I know I've had times where I had to talk about things to people. How about you?
I believe in it. I believe in all kind of therapy. So you want to tell us? You want to go on and talk about the history of the talking cure?
Yeah, go ahead. Continue.
Yeah. Well, okay, it's originated in the late 19th century with Joseph Brewer's treatment of Anna O, where he encouraged her to discuss her experience and memories, leading to symptom relief. Freud later adopted that approach and refining it into psychoanalysis. While initially used to describe psychoanalysis, it now encompasses a broad range of psychotherapeutic techniques that rely on verbal communications. So now you might be wondering who is Joseph Breuer, right? If I pronounce his name correctly. He was an Austrian physician and physiologist. He was Sigmund Freud's mentor for many, many years. He contributed to the development of the talking therapy and is considered the founder of psychoanalysis, believe it or not.
Something tells me he probably would have been really good on shows like Law and Order and CSI to get people to talk about what they did. What do you think?
Probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he would have been great in criminology and getting people to open up and, confess, if you will.
Yes.
But what's interesting is the fact that he was the mentor for Sigmund Freud.
Yeah.
How about that? I'm sure a lot of people probably didn't not only know that, but even knew that Sigmund Freud had a mentor. But I believe every great person, if you will, in their profession has some kind of mentor.
Yep.
What do you
Exactly.
think so?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Yep. And you know what interesting is Anna was a Brewer patient and she was experiencing hysteria. Brewer had later discovered that if he hypnotized Anna, she would reveal all sort of information she didn't recall when she was conscious. Her symptom would, lessen afterward, but this psychoanalytic treatment became a dub, the talking cure. And
Have you ever been hypnotized,
no,
Tiffany?
no, for somehow that's not for modern stuff. That's really traditional, old fashioned. No, I have never been hypnotized. Have you?
I think I've gone through some um small, brief hypnosis type settings. I can't remember specifics, but um, it's more of a the hypnosis kind of sessions I've been involved with, and not many. It was more of a meditation, bordering what would be called a hypnosis, but I've never been formally hypnotized by a, I don't know, certified hypnotist.
Yes, me
You know,
either. Yes.
because I think it borders hypnosis kind of borders again meditation, but I think where hypnosis goes across the line of meditation is when you have the ability to manipulate somebody's thoughts, memories, feelings, and I don't mean manipulate in a negative way. I mean try to reinforce things. I mean, obviously, for years people have gone to hypnosis for addictions like smoking, right, or eating.
Drugs. Yeah.
It still goes on to this day, though, I believe, even though it's a very old format. But
Yeah.
I just want to know if you were ever hypnotized and what are your thoughts of it?
No, because when I first started to work as a school psychologist, I worked with another psychologist. He said he hypnotized his patients. He have a private practice on the side, and that's what he said. He hypnotized them. And I said, really? I mean, I found it a little intimidating. But anyway, and back in the this is like 1880 when Anna O entered treatment. She's like 21 years old, and she entered therapy after she became ill, and she described to her doctor as possessing. She described by her doctor as possessing gifted imagination and unusual poetic. And the following month, she became what would be diagnosed today as schizophrenia, such as frightened hallucination of black snakes, near total physical paralysis of arms and legs, and major disturbance of speech and sight. Two contrasting states of consciousness will alternate within her personality, if you can believe it or not. The first one, normal, but overcoming sorrow, wrapped in sorrowful thought when she aware of her environment. And the second one is in her own fantasy state when she was abusive and naughty. So the talking cure was developed and refined by Joseph Burrow and later embraced by Sigmund Freud. Helped Anna O by encourage her to freely discuss her experiences, especially those related to her father's illness and death. And Brouillard, he was able to help her resolve some of her hysterical symptoms described in the case study published in Study of Hysteria. I think I read that a long time ago. I don't remember that. Like I read it like for like over 25 years, it's 30 years ago actually. The treatment involved her recalling expressing painful emotions, and that led to reduction and eventually disappearing of several symptoms. That's according to the case study. And
So you have somebody that is schizophrenic
mhm,
who experiences hysteria,
mhm.
and through the ability to communicate with somebody else or to talk
And talk freely.
about her experiences,
Yeah.
right? Especially those related in, to her father's illness and death. So, um, sounds like, over 100 years later,
Mhm.
talking still works pretty well, don't you think?
Oh yes, I think so. It works pretty well. And don't forget 1880, what rights and women have. You know what I mean? Like she was not encouraged to go to school to become something. And it's easier to go crazy back then, even though we're wondering what happened today. But I can understand why it's easier for them to develop all kind of symptoms, especially if they might want to make something out of themselves, but they couldn't because it's
So,
popular back then.
so here's the irony now of all this, and I'm going to take all this information now, and I'm going to um, introduce it into today's world. And you've heard me, in some of our episodes talk about social media, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, now people are overly communicative on social media when there's a problem, don't you think? Um, from anything that is as serious as an illness or a death in the family to somebody's just feeling depressed that day. But tell me if you've seen this on social media with some of your contacts that you connect with on social media where they'll just come out and say in a post or a video, I'm not doing well today. I'm just feeling down. I'm not myself or whatever. Don't you see that?
Yes, but I think the reason sometimes they put it up there because they want support from their friends.
And if we look back, was Anna given support by talking it out with
Yes,
her problem?
yes,
Okay.
she's talking
Right. So
talking out with her
people need
physician.
support, right? They need support. They need to address what's going on in their life. And ultimately a lot of this is the life they live within what 12 8 inches their head. Um but going back to modern day social media now, everybody is partaking in communicating what's going on in their lives, good and bad. So I wonder, with all of the posts I see of things that are, not going right and people are open about it, looking for support, like you said,
Hmm.
are they getting the support they need from social media?
Probably their friends would, go on it and go on to their post and say, sending you healing energy and sending you love. I would say that when I find that one of my contacts is upset over a death of a family, instead of leaving them alone, I would say something to make them feel better, to make them feel like they're not alone.
Yeah, and let's look at that a little bit further. Being alone. So is is the challenge at times when people think they're alone, whether they are or they aren't, and they don't believe they have anybody to communicate with, in this case, talk to, because the subject today is the talking cure. So, you know, do you ever feel alone that you have nobody to talk to, even though you have the whole world around you?
I guess everyone feel that way, or they feel like nobody would understand them. It's more like alone is when nobody's understand you. That's what that's how it is. When,
And
I,
is that kind of where we make decisions in our own mind and we start to remove ourselves from the public or society where we believe nobody's going to understand me or I can't trust anybody, so I'm not going to tell anybody what's going on, so I feel all alone,
well,
right?
you know what?
But that's self-imposed in most cases, correct?
Yes, you see and also that's also for someone who lack of maturity could talk like that too. I'm not talking about age, but when I was a school psychologist, I run into that situation. A teenager said it to the cop. I feel all alone. She was crying. And so the cop saw me. She said, talk to her. She's sweet because she know that I could take over. So when I spoke to her, I mean, she has some heavy duty stuff at home. Remember we talk about how so one of my students claimed that her father said that she's not his when she was 8 years old. He announced that she's not his. That way he doesn't have to pay for child support. Remember that?
I believe I do.
Yeah. So that's the same case, and and that domestic violence in the past. So she feel really sad, and she was not home. She was in foster care at the time. She wants to come home, and of course, I have to call her sister, and then I have to call her mother. And she and her mother start crying. We both make mistake. I'm better now. I want her home, and but they're very very emotional. So when they say they feel all alone because when they get all upset or emotional, how people tend to stay away from them. And she has certain issues that she doesn't think anyone could understand. So she feel like, oh, I'm all alone because nobody understands what I'm going through. But she's not alone. She has a lot of people around her that would help her.
So I grew up in a Roman Catholic religion in my family, and in a lot of my neighborhood that I grew up. Roman Catholic, you go to church, and you also partake in certain rituals. One is called confession. Are you familiar with confession in churches?
Yes.
So when you're growing up in Roman Catholic religion, and I can't remember the exact age when you do your first confession, but you're supposed to go into this little dark it's like a closet. You kneel down, and then there's
Yeah,
a
I saw it in
priest
Law
on
and
the other
Order.
side of this
I saw it.
panel.
Yeah, I saw it in Law and Order.
You saw it in Law and Order. I saw it in real life. And the goal is the priest is the intermediary between mortal human beings and the spirit, and God and Christ. And when I look back, the idea is to talk about your sins. To talk, you're talking to somebody that is not your parents, not a teacher, not a sibling. It's somebody that is again representing, um, the belief in a higher being, and they're the intermediary, if you will. It's not that we believe that they were, anything other than a human being, but they were in this position where you go to them and talk about your sins. I never felt when I was going in that talking was going to be a good thing. It was one of the most frightening and scary things as a young child to go into this dark closet with a priest, a man who you really don't know well. And back in the day, I remember some priests were kind of some were pleasant, some seemed a little scary, just like in school with teachers.
Yeah, yeah.
But the last thing you wanted to do was go talk to that person because they were more of a stranger,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And the setting was a little scary when you think about it. I never felt good going in and talking. It kind of felt good that when you left, one, it was over. That was the biggest, greatest feeling of when you got out of there, like, whoosh, I'm glad that's over. You kind of felt good that you did confess sins and supposedly you're going to be forgiven. But I never really felt great going in that setting and talking to somebody. What are your thoughts about that?
I was wondering how do you know your sin? You know, some people, how do you know what's sinful? Especially for some people who's not in the right state of mind.
Well, I could definitely tell you I was not in the right stage of mind back then, and I probably still am not. So asking somebody that's unstable like me, what did you do wrong?
How would you know?
Everything I did was wrong.
I
I
know.
had bad thoughts.
What do
I
you
had bad thoughts and intentions. I was envious. I lied. I stole. I said bad words. I thought bad things. I mean, those were the things that you literally would say, right? Um,
Okay.
and of course, stealing's wrong, and saying bad words. I don't know if you'll go to hell for that, but um, I talked back to my parents, or you would say you dishonored your parents because you had your commandments that you follow, and one of them is you honor your parents, your mother and father. So if you dishonor them by talking back or not going to bed when you're supposed to, I guess as a child you're dishonoring them. Um, so yeah, so again, like I never, I only felt cured as far as sin because it was taught upon us that then the priest would give you this absolution. You would go say some prayers and you're forgiven, right? And part of forgiveness is asking for forgiveness, right? But I never really felt great talking about it in a confessional, you know? So I thought I'd share that with
Yeah.
you, Tiffany.
No, I would imagine it'd be pretty scary if you go into the box and you don't know this person and were told you're supposed to trust them. And you
Yeah.
say like,
I mean, as a child, you're told to trust a lot of people, right?
yeah, say like, dear Father, I cursed at someone today, and that was a sin. Say, why you do that? Because the person cursed me first.
Yeah. I mean, and at the end, what could the priest tell you if you're 8 years old? What are they going to tell you? Are they, I can't remember if they would yell at you, but
No, they won't
like, what else
yell.
are they going to tell you? Why did you do that? Well, because
He
I
did it
wanted to,
first.
or I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't an 8-year-old do that? So, um, and then as an adult, think about it. Adults go to people, again, strangers, when they're having problems, therapy. Let's call it therapy. We're in California. We're in the land of Hollywood where there's a lot of therapy done in Hollywood, right? A lot of therapy, a lot of couch sessions. And I don't mean casting couch sessions, which is different. A lot of therapy, because people are screwed up. So now again, you're going to a stranger, people you don't know. You're recommended to go see this person because they helped all these other celebrities, and they'll help you, but they're still a stranger. Now it's not in this dark box, in a church. It's a nice couch, serene lighting, in a nice office. I mean, that is a little bit more relaxing.
Right, right. That's like being in psychoanalysis, and that's where the talking cure is referring to. And this has been shown
There was
effective
no
in treatment.
psychoanalysis in church, I could tell you that.
What?
Like when I look back, and what I'm getting at is when you think about being a child and going through, again, if you're Roman Catholic, and there were a lot of other religions where you went to confession, like there, it wasn't too proactive of a therapy other than you're forgiven of sins. Where fast forward, you're an adult going through psychoanalysis in a professional's office, it's more serene. You're probably going to get more out of it. It's probably more give and take. You're not being told you have to do it or forced technically to do it, unless there was a court order or something. But it's more submissive in a positive way. And I think there's probably more benefit to that, where maybe children should be going, instead of confessing their sins to a quote unquote priest, maybe they should be going to professionals that could really help them. Now, don't get me wrong. I've known a lot of priests in my life. Some of them were trained psychologists, right?
Hmm.
A lot of them are highly educated.
Hmm.
But I think the setting is a a common the motivation is more theological than psychological, right? So even if you had a priest that had a PhD in psychiatry and they're a priest in a confessional, it's theology is why you're going to see them more than psychotherapy, right? Even though they're trained, and there's only so much they'll be able to do in a confessional in about 2 minutes,
Right. So that's
compared
what.
to if I go to Tiffany, and Tiffany, you're a psychotherapist, and I've got a lot of problems, and I want to talk to you. We're going to talk about it over sessions, as long as I'm willing, of course, to pay you. That was the good thing about church, is at least I can get my sins confessed for about $5, because when they passed the the donation basket, I mean, you don't even have to put anything in there technically. I could go confess my sins for free and get a little bit of relief out of that. If I go to a psychotherapist, it's going to be a little bit more than that price wise, wouldn't you think?
Yes, but you know what? When you do it in the school, you do it for free because when I did psychotherapy or counseling for some of the kids, the school, I think sometimes the school get paid if it's official, and if it's just coming in, sometimes they don't give it to you because again, it also costs the school money, but I never turn anyone away. You know what I mean? Like when I'm doing my work, my paperwork, if they want to come in, they want to talk, and they want to like confess their sin, I would let them. Like one time, a boy come in, a teenage boy come in, he confessed his sin. You know what it was, Chris?
What was it?
He said, "I did something happened to me. That's not so great. What I did was I fell in love. So that was his sin. He fell in love over the summer.
And who did he fall in love with? Did he say?
Oh no, some girl. And but he shouldn't be doing it because he should be doing it because he should finish school. This is a responsible kid, one a responsible one. At least he found me, you know,
How old
because
was he?
he's around 17.
So he felt guilty that he sinned, that he fell in love at 17.
Yes, because I think that he saw his daughter counseling and his life is not like that easy, but he was able to express it. And people suggested, you don't fall in love, you don't do this, you don't do that. Just finish school, you have to organize yourself, you have to finish school, you have to focus on your schooling, you don't have, shouldn't have boyfriends and girlfriends. And believe it or not, they do recommend that. It might sound
Well, he must have been in a pretty strict household. I was praying to fall in love at 17, so I didn't have to think about school. He was the opposite. He actually felt bad,
yeah.
you know?
So well, at least he talks. So it's not like back
Yeah,
to the talking cure. It's been shown that it's effective for the wide range of mental and emotional condition, as well. All the symptoms that, all the some of the physical symptoms that connected to the mental health. Why they focus on the long-standing issue of feeling of inferiority. It explained to and addressed to a variety of issues. Including like anxiety, depression, trauma, and grief, and those things can create physical symptom as well. Some people they feel that the talking cure can reduce heart attack, help prevent cancer, or reduce cancer from getting worse, among other things.
absolutely. I firmly believe the ability to talk to people when needed, good or bad, depending on the situation, is healing. It's cleansing. Keeping things in really can be devastating to you, not just mentally, but again, physically, spiritually. Um, and again, when I look back in my life, there's times where I can't stop talking. I need to talk. And then there's times where you withdraw, right? But I think having the ability to talk to people, it's so important though, to have a community of people you could talk to. And if you can't, you then do need to seek out perhaps quote unquote professional assistance, right? If you have to pay somebody, because it's not about paying somebody to listen, it's about figuring out what you can do to
Yeah,
continue to move
they
forward,
call it
right?
emotional education.
Yeah. Emotional education is so huge. I think that's part of it is that um, we don't have a manual directions to how to live life. We really don't. And we don't have a manual or directions to understand our own minds and our own emotions. Like it's the hardest thing to do is you have to figure it out. It's different for everybody. If there was a manual, your manual would be different than mine because we're
Hmm.
all wired differently. We've
Hmm.
all come from different pasts, different experiences, different genetics, right?
Hmm.
So just because maybe you figure out how to handle it, it doesn't mean I'm going to. It's got to be one of the most frustrating things when I was growing up is there was no guidelines or steps
Hmm.
for me as an individual. You kind of have to figure it out.
Yes,
And
I think when we were growing up, it's similar. Back then it was similar like that, but now I think it's a little better. The parents that they encourage the parents and teacher to focus on the children, but it's also tough too because if you from sometimes you from, like you said, the single family household, and the parent might have to work two jobs. It's very difficult to have the kind of connection because when they come home, they're too tired to listen to their kids. They would tell the kids just to go.
I mean, I've experienced that.
Yeah,
You know, I grew up with a single parent.
and you know what somebody did? Now this remind me, Chris. Guess what? One time, a long time ago, when I just started studying acting, I was an extra in the film, and I met another extra, and this is what he said to me. He said that his father died very young. His mother did not have any skill, married young, a religious Catholic family, and three children, and all of a sudden he have a heart attack and died without any warning. So she has to have three jobs. She refused to go on social service because she wanted to set an example. And with her case, it's a bit too much. She had three jobs. So what she did was she put the children in Catholic schools, right? And in the morning she would leave before they get up, and she lay out the breakfast, and he wake up by the alarm clock, and he get his brother and sister get dressed and have breakfast and lock the door and go downstairs and catch the bus to go to school. And then she would call the school to make sure that the kids is in. And she would like she called the school like twice a day or something. And she would ask them to like take care of them. And I think they all went to like parochial school, and they stayed there after school, and they get home like around like after 6 o'clock, and then they would have dinner just to go to sleep, and they start over again. And she also worked on a weekend. She was a cleaning lady, I believe, with the city, and she managed to have like three different jobs. So, but guess what, Chris? Chris,
What?
all three
Yeah.
children came out successful.
Yeah, there's no defined path whether you came from a broken home or a, fulfilling home, if you will. We could all turn out in a positive way regardless of our environments. I look at it between you and me. Now, you grew up in Vietnam, correct?
Oh, I came over here when I was young. I was a twin.
But you grew up like you were when
Yeah,
you were 5 or 6 years old. Were you still in Vietnam?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so kindergarten age, right?
Hmm.
At kindergarten age, you're in a country like Vietnam going through a lot of turmoil. I grew up in the United States, so when I was going into kindergarten, I'm in the United States already, right? I was born in the United States, so it's pretty safe. It's pretty consistent. It's pretty um, consistent in what I would think of as a child. And when I look at that, it was very secure in my life. You came in it from a different environment completely.
Yes, but I lived in Saigon. I went to the French Catholic school when I was 5 years old, believe it or not. And the only thing about the war, but that time we didn't really know. We feel it, but we didn't know what's going on because some of us was just too young. But we never able to take like a long distance vacation. You know what I mean?
Was it predictable though? Like, did you feel secure back then that your life was predictable, that you didn't have to worry about anything?
Not really.
So it was a little unstable.
Yes, because the thing they don't tell us, they don't tell the children, but we would figure it out. But because of my experience, when I was just born, I was 6 weeks old. They broke into my home and threatened to shoot me if my late father didn't cooperate. And so I have that thing within me that I never really feel stable. And then I think when I was 4 years old or something, I didn't realize it, but not far from my house, they call it the Tet Mo Thân, that the communists already invaded part of Saigon that we know nothing about. And
Yeah, and where I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania. It was a bit different, of course, and we didn't have to worry about. Well, I'll go back. You know what? Now that I think about it, so our environment was safe and predictable, but back in the '70s, when I was in kindergarten, the one thing that was still at risk was the Cold War. So we did practice in school going into fallout shelters and practicing if there was a nuclear uh, detonation nearby, you would go under your desk, and we watched videos and movie. Well, there weren't videos then; there were movies we would watch, um, and there were fallout shelters. So we we kind of did live in a world back then, even in the United States, where the Cold War and the threat of nuclear extermination existed. I never felt that as pressure. It was just kind of preparing as if there was a fire. You stop, drop, and roll, right?
Mhm.
Well, we practiced if there was a nuclear war. What would we do if there was a bomb or something? That was probably the only bit of unstableness. That in the fact that the '70s was unstable anyway in the U.S. because of the Vietnam War, but I never felt like I was in danger of anything, and I think I lived a normal life in that sense. Where there's kids that grow up in countries where you wonder if you're going to have food to eat and if you're going to live.
Yes,
I know that
yes,
goes. I know hunger goes on in the United States, and there are neighborhoods that are dangerous, but there are countries in the world where literally you don't know if you're going to wake up the next day. Right? That's
I'm
a
sure.
whole
Yeah.
different way to grow up.
Hmm. Yeah, so I guess psychoanalysis would be helpful for the for people who experience the war too. Anxiety, depression, trauma, and grief. So now,
I mean, my trauma was homework. That was literally my trauma, like worrying about if I didn't do my homework or when my parents spoke to the teacher, what was the teacher going to say? Those were my traumas in life.
oh, okay. So now let's try.
Pretty trivial.
Let's can we heal our trauma with the fragrance of incense?
Yes, because I'm thinking about that trauma now of my childhood of homework and everything, and I think I need to be healed of that, Tiffany. So take us
Okay.
away.
So yeah, let heal it. The fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our practice center, protects and guards our mind from all wrong thinking. Let's see which card of Kuan Yi I picked today. Let's see what do we have. Oops, I got the Dynasty of the Divine Mother. See it?
I do. It looks like the Queen of Hearts or something. If it was a deck of cards.
Yep. This is it, the Dynasty of the Divine Mother. Okay, now, the only wish of the Divine Mother Goddess is that all beings be spiritually free. The Divine Goddess calls us to realize our true nature, to fall in love with our own divinity. Imagine that there's a light glowing in your heart that ebbs and flows with your breath. As you breathe in, you feel the light growing stronger, and as you breathe out, you feel the light expanding within and then all around you. Say softly, as loud as you breathe. Breathe in. I feel the light of love within me. Breathe in and out like this for a while. And then say, I am with the light of love and all things. Rest, feel the energy of connection and allow it to travel through your heart, through your entire bodies.
I'm very relaxed now,
Yep, and
Tiffany.
that's very,
Very
very,
relaxed.
very healing. Now you wanna tell us about some insult before the
So
four
after
letter
we get relaxed, let's insult some people. Yeah, why not? Let's do that. Insults, insults. Let's go back to some we probably talked about in the past. Let's see. Let me look for a good one here. Well, here's an easy one. He had delusions of adequacy. Walter Kerr. He had delusions of adequacy. How about that? I'm sure a lot of us feel adequate in life, but we're really not. And that's part of the lies that we tell ourselves so we can feel better. Uh, every now and then it is good to lie to ourselves. Here's another one. He has all the virtues I dislike and none of the voices I admire. Huh. Winston Churchill. Again, these are very cerebral insults. Some people may not really understand it was an insult if you say that to them.
Oh yes.
Um, I'll give you another one. I'll give you another one. Let's see here.
Churchill's funny.
He has no enemies, but is intensely disliked by his friends. How about that? Oscar Wilde.
I
I
love
mean, with
Oscar.
friends like that, you don't need enemies, right?
Yeah,
So
I love
wow. And you
Oscar
know what?
Wilde.
That's so true because sometimes the friends in our lives are our biggest enemies, like, and we don't realize it,
Yeah,
you know? So he
backstabbing
has
it.
no enemies, but is intensely disliked by his friends. How many people do we know they have friends that are toxic in their lives?
And
And Oscar Wilde knew that.
sometimes they're toxic, and they pick the friends they pick are just like them.
Absolutely. We attract, I mean, we supposedly we attract what we are. We take
Or the opposite, but sometimes if they're so toxic, you have to let them go. You know what I mean? And sometimes they're so toxic
we
that they don't
should.
understand why you let them go. Like, oh, how come I didn't hear from you? How come you're not talking to me anymore? Like they don't like completely clueless of how toxic they are.
Plus the old saying, misery loves company. Misery loves company, right? So maybe when there's friends that dislike you, maybe you're the same with them, and maybe you just all kind of like to be together because you love the company of misery and complaining and the ability to put down others because it makes you feel better. So, um, yeah, makes you wonder. Anyway, those were some really good insults.
I have never.
And did you
What
want
about?
to talk about quickly any of the movies regarding like psychoanalyzing and
Yeah,
psychoanalysis and all that
yeah, we can continue that
fun
next
stuff?
week. But can I say one thing first by Clarence Darrow? I have never killed a
Go
man,
ahead.
but I have read many obituary with great pleasure.
There you go. So you want to talk about movies next week?
Well, we will talk about something within a symptom within a show next week. But we can
Okay.
discuss more on films on psychoanalysis.
I mean, we could end it with this as far as psychoanalysis and um, illnesses, and we talked about Anna and and the challenges that Anna had um, that turned out to be schizophrenia and and the challenges that she had. Okay, so when you think about all the movies that have been created up until today, based on our topic today, the movie that seems to pop into my head probably the most is the movie Psycho.
Oh, Hitchcock.
So when you think about it, think about this. What we talked about today,
Hmm.
schizophrenia, and we talked about all the symptoms, and then we talked about um, what goes into that. Okay. And then part of that becomes a hysteria, right? We talked about hysteria and the symptoms of that, and anxiety, depression, trauma, grief. So in Psycho, the character of Norman Bates, and I hope I don't ruin it for anybody because the movie has been around since 1960. But if you haven't seen it, I hope I don't ruin it. But the trauma starts when well, the trauma was always constant because his mother was very demanding and very controlling. But when she dies, is when that changed his life and ultimately decided to continue living her life in his own head, if you will. But ultimately, I'm sure there was anxiety, depression, and trauma to Norman Bates
Yeah.
to the point where he became schizophrenic. And I'm sure there's a lot of other diagnoses. But what do you think about that movie based on what we talked about?
It
Do you think if
scared
Norman
me.
had somebody to talk to,
I
he
think
may not have been dressing up like his mother and killing people?
yeah, but I think like yeah, he definitely needed someone to talk to. But also, Hitchcock, he created that movie, and that's like the first movie where the leading lady went missing after a few minutes. You know what I
How
mean?
about that?
Yeah, that,
Yeah.
that was something else. And
Right.
plus, he also adds some sense of humor in it from the beginning too. Like his daughter played the secretary in the office, and he made his daughter look to be very unattractive. And then when someone come in and gets flirt with the more attractive woman, that must be Janet Leigh, and the daughter would say something, oh, he didn't flirt with me, he must saw my wedding band then.
Pretty interesting.
Like Hitchcock, he would use his daughter, and then he's just like laying up the move from the beginning.
I never knew that either. That I never knew that about the movie as far as the secretary.
Oh, just watch it again from the beginning.
I'll have to now because I never knew that.
You probably missed it, but it did happen. It's pretty funny, but it's very quick because that's Hitchcock for you. He has some sense
Yes,
of humor in it, but he's very quick and witty about it.
absolutely.
But anyway, well, thank you so much, Chris, and I look forward to see you next week.
I do too, and don't hesitate to call me and talk if you need to.
I
And
won't.
I do the same.
You
Okay.
do the same. Thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye bye.